Welcome to the HabitStack Podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Wendy Covey, and co-founder of TREW Marketing, author of Content Marketing Engineered, and host of the podcast by the same name. It's good to be here today with you, Wendy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I want to hear all about True. By the way, actually, I just want to ask you one question real quick. So it's capital TREW,
Yeah.
right? Does it stand for?
Yes. It started out, so I'm a co-founder, and we thought, we don't want to sound like this uptight, shiny shirt marketing agency. We wanted to express that we're partnering with you. We want to be trusted. And at first we came up with crew marketing, and that was taken 10,000 times over.
Right.
And so trust in crew became true, and we were off to the races. And the .com was available, which was nice.
That makes a difference. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's kind of fun to hear a little bit of the background. So tell me a little bit. I want to hear more about what you're up to, obviously, but also I want to know what you're learning, what you're reading and thinking about these days. Talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I think like all of us, trying to stay as much as I can ahead on everything AI as it relates to agency business, as it relates to marketing services delivery. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Paul Reitzer, I know him way back in the early HubSpot days, but his podcast is always one that I catch every week. Also listen to a lot of agency business podcasts.
Mhm.
And then in my personal life, I love to read, but I love to read fiction. So a good murder mystery, something like that. Can't do business books at night. So I don't know why. I love to listen to business stuff podcasts in the car, and then personal life on books.
Can I confess something? Uh, I read business books, but when there's a good fiction book, well, a good novel going, like I don't care about the business books. I'll just the novel's way better. S-
Right? Exactly.
like a good
Exactly.
novel for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so can I ask you I when I talk to people who are in marketing, they will often say thinking a lot about AI and the impact of AI in marketing. Um, and it just occurred to me that maybe I'm making assumptions because I'm not in marketing, other than being a business owner. But um, what is it that AI is a threat? I mean, is it the content generation? Is it that it can just create the designs? Is it that it like sending personalized emails at scale? Like these are some of the things I know about, but what actually is it when you say, "Ooh, AI is changing what we do"? What do you
Yeah.
actually think of when you say that?
And it's interesting that the first word you used was threat, because
Yeah,
depending on who
right.
you're talking to, it's a huge opportunity or it's a threat. And when ChatGPT first came out, obviously one of those early use cases was content development, and that's about half of my business. And
Right.
we work solely with highly technical companies in engineering. So to us, it's not just a given that you can just go to ChatGPT and write awesome, really deeply technical white papers, for instance. So it wasn't so much a threat, other than the perception by, let's say, company leadership that, oh, we don't need to hire an agency. We can just use ChatGPT. And I think everyone's gotten past that. They see what it can do and what it can't do for those early use cases. So if we fast forward to now, and you think about, for instance, say with the writing process, my writers use it to deeply research a topic and to augment what we're hearing from the subject matter expert inside of the company. And so it can make our writing stronger by using that research and that, but it doesn't replace the writer.
Hmm.
Now, does it make the writer more efficient? Yes. Does it make the quality better? Yes. But the time savings is a little bit negligible compared to just having a better quality product. Um, so that's that side. And one of the biggest great things we've seen is a couple of use cases. One is persona development. So if we're writing to, say, a design engineer in the automotive industry working on infotainment, we can get in their heads through using ChatGPT as well as our knowledge and our clients' knowledge about what should that value proposition be and where can we find that person exactly? And we can even test an ad against that persona using ChatGPT. So that's been great. The branding front, developing company messages, and doing voice of customer interviews, and you can take all of that information, vet it out, analyze it. So think of it as a research companion. So those are a couple of good ones that we're using it for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think my experience is I've used it in some ways, well, in a lot of different ways. But what you're saying resonates in terms of kind of having a perspective to evaluate what you're producing, because AI is. I don't know if it's super smart, but it's tireless, and so the ability to hold the number of data points or the number of things that it's weighing all at once. Like I can do maybe like four, but a computer can do 25 different things. You write this ad, or you write this or code, or you write something, and it can just hold a lot more stuff at once and do simple checks, even if it's simple checks, but relentlessly done. That's really valuable, actually.
Yes, yes. We do an annual research study on the buying behaviors of engineers, and we're in our ninth year. So imagine I can take all of those 9 years of
Mm.
data and forget pivot tables. Those are a thing of the past. Now I have my GPT research analysts that I can work with to talk about trends over time and see where this data is moving.
Hmm. Hmm. So when you do marketing to technical buyers, what's different about technical buyers compared to, I guess, non-technical buyers?
Do you have any engineers in your life?
Well, I do, yes.
Do they have certain personality or thing traits about them that stand out compared to, say, your more creative, I wouldn't say creative friends, but just people in other
Yeah, don't
professions?
say creative versus non-creative.
No, not creative. I had to walk that back really fast because actually engineers are quite creative.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think where you're going is kind of like the technical depth and the interest in the way things work and these sorts of things. Or yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Some of it's the curiosity, some of it's the stickler for detail.
mhm.
Um, just a different way of thinking, and a lot of skepticism when it comes to being marketed to or sold to.
Mm.
More appreciation for data over beautiful. Say I was writing a case study or whatever, I could spend more time designing it to look great or having deeper data in in that paper. You can imagine which they lean towards. And if you think about it fundamentally, engineers are working on things that impact our lives in sometimes ways that, life or death. Do you recall a while back when the astronauts got stuck in
I
space?
do. Yeah.
Very long time. Or when Boeing, that door flew off, the door Boeing, right? Those are all engineering things, things that touch engineering. And so the purchase decisions they make have to be very considered, and so the way we market to them is different. Our attention to detail needs to matter because the details matter to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And has it mostly been kind of like a decision that you made to pick a niche kind of, or how did you come to this focus?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So my baby marketing career, if you will, so the first 15 years of my career was spent at a large engineering company called National Instruments here in Austin, Texas. And I decided to leave with a coworker to start the agency. And we weren't planning on being this niched at the time, but it was 2008. And we all recall what happened 2008, 2009 wasn't the best financial environment.
Mhm.
And so pretty quickly, we were hurting. And we asked ourselves, who are the next 5 clients that we want? Who do we wanna work for? And we said, man, we've been spending our whole careers marketing to engineers. We know the trade shows, we know the publications, we understand their way of thinking. What are we doing working with the United Way of Central Texas, or this teacher that wants to create virtual flashcards, or whatever it was we were
Right.
doing at the time? You get
Yeah.
the idea. And so we niched down, redid our marketing, redid our website, everything, and gained traction very quickly. Our business took off, and we realized, okay, that's really the key, not only to stand out, but for us, you can't do everything and know everything. And so we felt like we were serving our clients better by being niched, so that we know it's working, right? It's a repeatable process.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It feels like to me, my observation and experience is that succeeding in business is not trivial, and it can be difficult, and so it doesn't usually make sense if you have an unfair advantage, like you did. Should probably press it. You should
I
probably
love
use
that.
it. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I just, maybe I'll play to that advantage, or maybe what." No, I think it's gonna take every advantage you've got,
Yeah, yeah.
so just use it.
Stack
Uh,
it in your favor.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So were you kinda, like, born a marketer, or did you learn it? I This is one question I have, is I feel like marketing is kinda like the bane of my existence, and I look at other people like, "Man, they're just it just, like, flows out of their pores." Or does it? Or is it something you pick up over time?
I have I'm definitely a natural communicator, and was always gravitating towards something in communications. At first, I thought it was broadcast journalism. I wanted to be the this sideline woman at the football games, and actually
Yeah,
did that in high school. I interned in radio and TV, and found out how little they make, how very difficult it was to succeed without moving to different markets, and I wasn't willing to do that.
right.
And so my baby job there at National Instruments, you'll love this. So I was 22. I found it in the newspaper because I'm that old. And it was an events coordinator position. And I read it, and I read this tiny little description, and I said, oh my gosh, someone would pay me to plan parties?
Oh,
Excellent. Like, let's do this. What I didn't know is what it really was 70 trade shows a year across North America, all
right,
engineering trade shows. Doesn't it sound fabulous? And then a user conference, and, so that was the start, and I loved it. I absolutely loved, that time at that age, and then developed from there into being an actual strategic thinking marketer. That came a little bit later. I
right,
was past my party phase.
right, right. 70 in a year, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot of parties.
Fortunately, I didn't have to attend them all,
Oh,
so.
okay. I'm curious, maybe just to kind of pivot a little bit the conversation. Most people listening will be founders or leaders in organizations who are kind of, I mean, they're high performers, they're pretty good, but also there's like this awareness of like, and I probably need to be better. I know there's ways that I need to be better. And I'm curious to get your take on a question around how do you discern when the thing that you're thinking about, I need to change, or there's you know, the business is kind of asking me to change in some way. There's pressure for me to be something different than I am. How do you tell when that is the point of growth for yourself versus staying within your area of strength, and like, and manage, and not wavering, and not trying to become everything. Like, sometimes it's hard to tell which situation is which.
Sure, sure. That's a very good question. When, we niched down, and I mentioned there was data to show that that worked, right? So revenue growth, lead growth, all of that. But over the years, more and more people found us, right? And so we would be like, well, what about cybersecurity, or what about SaaS? And if you think about the tentacles, the adjacencies, if you will, beyond your core, And so we have would meander out to some of these adjacencies and see how it goes and learn from it and decide, okay, was that a good experiment? Should we put more resources into that adjacency and pull it into the core? And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, but more often than not, we learn that that was really a one-off and it came to us through a relationship. And while it was a cultural fit, it wasn't something we want to stake our business on. So we've come back to the core. And what I think has worked well for us is our core definition. So when I tell people, our niche is working with engineering companies, some of them look at me and say, is there enough business out there for you? And I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea. Like we could
Yeah.
never service, all of the addressable market, right? So part of it is making sure you're not too narrowly defined where you just run out of business. And the other one is not being so broad that you're generic. Um,
The
and,
first one is
and
not usually the problem that we've slipped into, right? Like, I've overdefined my niche, and it's usually not what people do.
yeah, no. And I have talked to, so in the marketing circles, I've talked to other agencies and they're like, we only work with, I remember one was outdoor, like UTVs and RVs. So I'm like, okay, that's a niche.
Yeah,
But,
right.
and there's only, so many manufacturers of those. But then they went on to explain, well, then you have the dealers and then you have the RV parks and the facilities where those vehicles go. And that's kind of their adjacency. And the more we talked, the more I saw that, okay, yeah, that's depending on how big you want to grow, that's actually yeah, I could do well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you talked about the size of the market a little bit. I'm always curious, what the plans are, like, are you in growth mode, kind of like, let's grow this, let's 10x this thing over the next 5 years, or are you, is it more incremental growth than that? What are you envisioning?
Yeah, I liked controlled growth. I came from this environment at National Instruments based on the book Built to Last. And there's a tenet there, which was, if you're growing more than 40% a year, it's out of control. It's not comfortable. You lose focus, you lose people. There's a lot of problems with that. But if you're sluggish, then there's no career path for people, right? And you can't afford to pay them well, and you can't do profit sharing, and you're just barely getting by.
Right.
So that idea of controlled growth is nice. That's what I've tried to do. Um, I don't aspire to have a giant company and 10x and all that. That sounds awful to me. I want it to be comfortable. I value work-life balance, and I value that for my team. I have a great retention rate, and I think it's because the people that are attracted to me understand that philosophy and are kind of bought into it. So we try to go for that, so 15 to 30% growth is a very successful year. If we're only at 5 to 10, but we're profitable, I'm not gonna cry over that. So somewhere in there is what I try to aim for.
This next thing that I'm curious about, it might be a little bit on point, I don't know, but I am curious about it. It's very useful. It's very useful for people to hear about all the whole enchilada for other people who are doing the similar things in entrepreneurship. So here's a question: what's the one of the big mistakes that you made in business? They're like, oh man, if I did that over again, I'd like to do it differently.
Yeah, yeah. So I wrote a book called Content Marketing Engineered that you mentioned at the beginning. I started the podcast and I thought, oh, this can be its own thing. Like let's create a brand for it. Let's create its own website. Let's put all of my speaking engagements, because I speak at conferences a lot, all of that educational stuff over here. And the premise was for people who don't want to hire an agency and they want to self-serve and have an educational brand, let's go put it over there into this other brand. And what it created was two websites to maintain, a lot of content to keep updated, a lot of brand confusion over, is this Wendy the CEO or is this Wendy the author and speaker? And it just, at the end of the day, was inefficient and unnecessary. And it wasn't the SEO play that I imagined it to be. So while that isn't a catastrophic thing that happened, I certainly learned a lot about it and killed it pretty fast. So We tried it for 9 months, got rid of it. So that was a big one. And then my other one is just hiring, thinking my revenue was going to keep on the same trajectory, over hiring and having to step back. And that's only happened once in my 17 years of business, but it made me sick to my stomach that,
Yeah, yeah.
that happened. So.
I mean, both of those are very great examples, and I'm curious. It's always kind of a question following a mistake is, and how do you avoid it in the future? And so, like, what's the rule of thumb that you use now for hiring versus revenue? Like, what is there a new rule of thumb? Like, I'm never going to do that again, and this is how I'm going to convince
Yeah,
myself
yeah,
that I'm not going to do it.
right. As a services business, the other option is develop a solid bench of contractors that you can tap. And although we were doing that, I think we're just a little over optimistic when it came to that pipeline. And so having those contractors fill in the gaps, uh, you know, asking the staff to do some extra hours for extra pay until you can bring that next person on. So just not being quite so optimistic, managing in a different way, that's helped us. And frankly, if I charge a little bit more, then I can afford some idle time and I don't panic as much about the staffing. And then finally, not being afraid to say no or to delay new contracts.
Hmm.
And I do that, and that actually gives a nice message because we're so in demand that you have to wait 3 months to work with us.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you lose some, but you also get some people that are willing to do it. So yeah.
But I don't know if there's a formula, but what's the signal that tells you, oh no, we are busy enough and we do, revenue is such that we should hire? Like, what's the tipping point?
Yeah, so we have a capacity model that we work with. So I have every employee, and we're value-based pricing. However, under the hood, operationally, we still have to track hours, right? So I have a billable rate for everyone. I know their availability to do service delivery. So thus I can calculate what my revenue threshold is. So I know that if my pipeline is this much money, I know my close rate, I know how much revenue I can handle with that staff, then I can kind of do that calculation and see, okay, we're bumping up towards the ceiling. It's time to recruit, and then, go from there.
Right. Right. How's the podcast going?
It's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on year 5,
Oh, wow. How many
and
episodes?
how many? Oh gosh, 400, and I'm gonna say around
Wow.
450.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I've had years where I went every week, and then I have now scaled back. What happened with every week was I didn't get the quality guests that I hoped. I was so panicking about getting everybody in, filling each slot that I took a hit on quality. So now I do every other week. I'm very thoughtful about who we bring on, and that's been a good formula. It does level off growth a little bit when you don't have as many episodes,
Hmm.
but that's okay. I think it's a good trade-off to have the quality, and
Is it
so
mostly a labor of love, or do you like what's the business impact that you've seen out of the podcast?
yeah, it's I would put it in the bucket of awareness and credibility first. Definitely doesn't hurt for SEO because the more places where we talk about our expertise and that sort of thing, the better. And it's also a great sales tool. And you probably know this too. You can bring on people that you aspire to work with and develop a relationship. And that's not so bad. And even if it doesn't work out, you're still now part of each other's communities on LinkedIn. And that helps again with awareness and just getting your brand in more places. So
Mhm.
I see enough benefit that it's worth doing. There's not as many hard metrics with podcasts as there are with other things. You've probably experienced this too, right?
Mhm.
So you don't know who the people are that are listening unless they subscribe to some blog or something.
Mhm.
But that's okay. It's if you see it bigger picture for those other things, then yeah, it's working.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. And that's amazing. More props for sticking with it for so long. Most podcasts don't last nearly that long.
Thank you.
Um, I'm just going to keep peppering you with questions if that's all
I
right.
love it. This is fun.
I have lots of things I want to talk to you about. So you have enough people, seems like, based on LinkedIn, you have enough people. You probably have like a management layer or something, like you have some senior leaders that are kind of departmentally in charge. Is that true? Okay.
That is true. I have a president. I have a leadership team of 4,
Okay. Yeah.
including a president. So I'm CEO. She's president. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. So what is the like what structures or habits or tools do you use to keep everybody aligned and pointed in the same direction and accountable and all that kind of stuff? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So are you familiar with EOS?
Yes,
There you go. That's my
there it
answer.
is.
No. So what we do EOS light. I'm sure we don't follow to the letter. We didn't
Right.
bring in an integrator, but we read I guess what was it? Get a grip, I think it was. Anyway,
Get a grip and
and
traction.
just said, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But we have our L10s, our weekly scorecard, our KPIs, all the EOS things. So if those listening don't know about EOS, go look it up, go read, get a grip. Great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice alignment tool that we use. We do formal planning twice a year. So we said, so we just finished up our executive leadership retreat where we spent 2 days together in ideation mode. And then we follow it up with a 1-day business planning meeting where we get into, let's set our actual goals and rocks,
Right.
the downstream marketing and sales plans. And then we revisit that at the half. Of course, we're looking at metrics more often than that and pivoting when we need to. But that's more or less how we flow it.
So maybe this is different for true marketing, but in many cases, so like sometimes a quarterly rock doesn't get done. Sometimes they're missed. Probably you've never experienced this, but some people don't completely achieve every quarterly goal that they set. And so when that happens, I'm just out of curiosity, how do you hold that as the CEO? How do you handle that with one of your senior leaders who um, maybe they missed all three? Like what does accountability look like, and how do you kind of think about? I guess it's important that we hit our goals, but also the world is wild and woolly, and it's hard to know
Yeah, things
exactly.
happen.
Well, yeah,
Right.
things happen. So
Right.
how do you thread the needle?
Yeah. It's funny when we started the EOS thing early on, we would set rocks, but we wouldn't necessarily put names next to them. And in some cases, it was just, because, so and so is in charge of marketing, so they're going to take the marketing one or whatever. But there were times when we missed them simply because there was no person assigned to be accountable to that.
Mhm.
And by the time we realized we were behind on that rock, we were towards the end of the quarter and it was, so we fixed, that's easy, right? That's an easy fix. And so now it's rare that we don't hit one or someone doesn't prioritize it. If it happens, we're discussing it at L10 and we're saying, you know what, I think that this other thing that came up in our business is way more important. Let's purposely push this out, or let's change the definition of this. So we are not so rigid that we don't change when we need to. And I guess I'm lucky that my leadership team feels a lot of ownership in the company. I do profit sharing with them. They feel that they're owners along with me, if not legally, certainly in spirit. And so they're great.
Mhm.
They're as invested as I am.
Right. Yeah, I think that is such a valuable part of EOS and other systems that people use like this is just the early signal. Well,
Mhm.
the assignment is huge, right? That's so interesting. That's a good example of something that I think of as like an unforced error. If it's unassigned,
Yeah,
it's an unforced error. It
totally.
didn't need to happen. It didn't.
Yeah.
That's the worst when you miss a goal for a reason that
And you're like, this is so dumb. We
must.
just didn't put someone's name on it.
Yeah,
Like we all thought it was important and somebody else should do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that there are other unforced errors too, but that's a good example of one. But yeah, just like talking about these things regularly goes a
Yeah.
long way to.
Absolutely. Let's bring it back up. Oh, I forgot we had that. Yeah, let's get on that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, let's see. What else do we have to talk about, Wendy? What's something you want to talk about? I've been dominating.
Um, Let's see. So I think it would be helpful. So I'm imagining other small business owners on this call, and many of which might be in service businesses like me. One of the interesting keys to our growth. So I mentioned earlier that we work a lot with, imagine engineers that are in the position of I'm the vice president of sales and marketing, or I'm the president of the company, but they're still engineers, right? And they're
Yeah.
skeptical of marketing. And so early on, in addition to our own experience, we would try to find data, that would back up our recommendations. So say I'm building a marketing plan, and here's this B2B study from Gartner that shows whatever. And they would say, oh, well, I don't trust that because engineers are different. And I said, well, yeah, engineers are different. So we started this research report that I mentioned earlier. It's called the State of Marketing to Engineers report. And we've done this now 9 years with a large publisher that has a sizable database of engineers. So it's perfect.
Mhm.
And that has helped us so much in having the data behind and imagine ask questions like, what social media platforms do you use for work? Do you listen to podcasts? What types of content are most helpful? How long do you spend researching a purchase decision before you want to talk to someone at the company? So
Right.
those are the types of questions in there. So it's meant to inform your marketing strategy and frankly, your sales strategy too, or
Mhm. Mhm.
pieces of it. And so by having that data, we can be smarter about what we recommend, but also it brings a lot of credibility to our company and our claim to be experts in reaching this audience. And so that's just been invaluable. It's a lot of work. And
Mhm.
then what happens with that research too is now I have all of this content that I can take into speaking engagements. I can take it onto LinkedIn because imagine all the data points, all of those are LinkedIn posts, those are
Oh, yeah.
videos.
Oh, yeah.
It's a webinar, it's a podcast. There's all these legs to repurpose that information.
Mhm.
So I'm not suggesting everybody has to go out and do research per se, but the idea of having something that's your own point of view, this long form content that then you can take into bite-sized chunks out into the world to, that will help you build your credibility. It'll get you traction with SEO. And now we have to talk about not just SEO, but AEO or
Yeah.
GEO. Do you know what
Yeah.
those mean? I
What's
don't
the
know which we're going to
what?
settle.
Generative, yeah, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yes. Generative or yeah. Yeah. And anyway,
Yeah, that's such a I mean,
AI optimization is the A.
yeah, yeah. It does feel like that. Being the backer or the executor of a survey, um, you do see other companies doing that with great effect, but that there's you do all suddenly you're positioned dramatically different than your competitors. Let's say that there's somebody listening who's thinking about, that would be a good idea, so you've done it now. So what lessons learned, in terms of getting something like that going? Did you just do it with the resources you had in-house, or did you hire an analyst, or
Mhm.
outsource it, or like what were the takeaways
Mhm.
from that process?
Yeah, we were fortunate to have the right resources in house, but needed to partner with someone who had that database.
Mhm.
And the the first year we did it, we partnered with somebody different that we're not working with today. And unfortunately, they wanted to suppress some of the results because they didn't align with their service offerings.
Oh, wow.
And and they did align with ours. So it was a very uncomfortable situation, and I never wanted to have that where you suppress anything. Like, the data is the data, and let's
Right.
not just
But that I mean, that literally that was particularly for your demographic, your target.
Yes, yes.
End of the
So needless to say, that partnership didn't last beyond that first year. So it does help workload balance, even, having a partner do that. Again, anytime you partner with another company, you need to think about, is this going to hurt or help my brand? Like, are we good? Are we a good brand match?
right.
Right? Because people are going to associate your brands, whether you want them to or not, they just will.
Yeah.
So what is your
But
joint
to
value
take a step
proposition
back there,
here?
sorry, Wendy, to interrupt. So to
Yeah.
take a step back there, that's the distribution piece. Like, think about distribution. How are you going to reach the people who you want to take the survey? This is who you want.
Yes, exactly. So if you're a small startup, you may not have the database. So for instance, I have a large database, but it's marketers. That's not who the survey is aimed at. It's
Right.
engineers. I don't have that. I don't have the ability to do
Right.
this research without having a partner that has that type of data. So
Why
it's
do the
great.
engineers take the survey? I hate taking surveys. They always say like it'll take 2 minutes, and then it turns out to be 5 pages, and
They, I guess,
it's just better
appreciate
people to
being heard.
better
Our
people.
sample size is, our qualified respondents are always somewhere in 700 to 1,200. So we have a lot of people that are
Yeah.
willing to respond. We do a gift card drawing, and it's legitimate, by the way. When you see that in a survey, we're actually doing the drawing and awarding it. So we just do some Amazon gift cards, I think it
Yeah.
is, or something like that. But yeah.
Okay, so that hasn't been actually the challenge. Like when you ask people to do the survey, they say yes, generally.
I mean, not everyone, right?
Yeah, of course.
We probably get, I don't know exactly what the response rate is between the pool of people we reach out to, but I'm going to guess it's somewhere, 5%, 10%, something like that. So
Right.
you have to work with a pretty sizable data set to get to meaningful data that you can trust. And we've been able to achieve that. So
What do you think if somebody's listening and thinking, well, I think I could get how many just should they be? What's the minimum? I guess if you got it's
yeah,
100,
I have asked so many
500.
analysts this question and I get different answers. I think 200 is a bare minimum. I mean, in 200, I'm barely going to trust this thing.
Mhm.
500 is the sweet spot in my mind of where, okay, we have a diverse enough set of people answering this
Mhm.
question that I can trust that there's a trend here. Yeah. So
Right. Do you ever get an engineer say like, well, um, the respondents, there's like selection bias, right? Because the people who
There is, of
respond to this,
course, absolutely. It's so funny when I present, they'll be like, "Well, the way you asked this, da 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 da,"
yeah, exactly the
or
same.
they'll ask me to interpret the data in a deeper way than what the question really intended. And so I have to say, look, we didn't ask, why do you like Reddit and Stack Overflow so much? We just said, d- you know,
Yeah, right.
you prefer it or whatever. We didn't give the why. So here's your scale of 1 to 5, and you have to figure out why they like it.
Right.
Maybe in a future one. So that's when I finally away it. Maybe next year we'll go deep in that area.
Yeah, right, right. Wendy, I really appreciate you taking the time and during a busy time of year to come and talk to us about what you're up to and some of the lessons learned as a leader and as a marketer. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Have a good one. Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack podcast.